Continue. Good.
Yeah. Hi, Daniel,
Hi,
my
Marcus.
my old friend.
Yes, we are like brothers.
Yeah, yeah, like brothers. It's almost, what is it, almost 30 years.
Past 30 years. Yeah, I'm very bad in years.
I know, I know that
Very
you
bad.
are.
I'm very bad in years. I have 77 years now, so I can't remember everything. And I'm still a young man, as you can see.
I know you are. Hey, I would like to hope that this opportunity to talk with you here will also introduce you to some other people that know me because you've been so important for me in my life. At the exact right moment, I met you at the exact right moment, and you have been like a major influence on me as a musician and composer, and so it's great.
I'm
I get to
glad.
talk. Yeah. And you did, you have like these really amazing, for me, it was like a really revolutionary idea, the Carreaux about music, and the way that you were kind of like trying to mathematically solve the problem of voice leading, um, which is something that we should go into in this conversation. But really, Daniel, I would like to really, um, in this conversation, learn more about you, like even because I don't know much how you got into music, um, and how was your family life when you were a kid, and which musical instruments did you first play?
Guess what I started to play when I was 14?
Guitar.
The guitar, yes. So my mom brought me a recorded guitars from Milan, acoustic, a classical guitar,
Hmm.
and then I started to learning classical guitar. But immediately I bought a Framus, Framus, this
Hmm. Sure.
famous German guitars, and I started to play a shadow cover. Dun, dun,
Ah.
dun, dun. So I was immediately in very high. I put the level very high, playing the shadows. And then I had at this time we had always. I remember that what was nice at this time we always had suits with neckties. We were all playing with suits with neckties. Can you believe that? When I see Charlie Parker, everybody had a suit and necktie. Now, and then I immediately start to be interested in contemporary jazz. Of course, Charlie Parker, and then even New York jazz. So I immediately left classical rock to go into contem- contemporary jazz.
So was your family musical? Like, did they?
No, not really, not really. My mom was playing piano, so I was brought to learning classical music
Mhm.
more and more. Yeah.
And when did you start learning reading music? Was that as a child already, before you had the guitar?
No, no, really. I started like musical studies at the academy. We call that the academy.
Hmm.
But then my dad was against. My dad was a very great guy, as you know, avant-garde in painting and everything. But he hardly wanted me to be a musician because he said you will never earn one penny, which is true. So I made civil engineering, and then I say, no worry, I'm going to do civil engineer. I did the basic music school. Then I said I'm going to do civil engineering and polytechnic, and the conservatoire.
Okay.
And so it was impossible, of course, because at Polytechnique they check your 8 hours. You have to do laboratoire in the afternoon, so it was impossible. And then every time I was coming to the conservatoire, Well, it was also very difficult, because they were already reading very hard stuff,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so at the end, I took private lessons in with some chef d'orchestre and composers, and then I started to say, okay, now I want to study something very hard, and then I started to study harmony very hard. But I did it uh, besides the Polytechnique. So I was studying Polytechnique, and then I was studying also harmony. And harmony, I really studied hard, like I was doing Hindemith, all the exercises um, in every tonality, also in C sharp. And I'm glad I did that, because I think uh, I'm not sure that you have to study composition. I'm not sure you have to study counterpoint and etc. If you like, do it. But harmony, that's very important. I mean,
Hmm.
that for me, that is the basic science of the composer, because harmony is studying vertical arrangements.
Yeah.
And if you study, then you already know something.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And
Yeah.
did you have so you said you had the Hindemith books. Did you have a good teacher who gave you those books, or
Yeah, I had great teachers. I had a great Kapellmeister, very well known in the time.
Mhm.
He was the first guy who played Wozzeck in
Really?
Brussels. Yeah, and he was very funny also.
Mhm,
His name
mhm,
was André van der Noot. And when I heard Wozzeck at the first time, it was like, one of those influences you don't know that it's gonna change your life.
mhm.
You say, what's that? Uh,
And it was WhatsApp for me as well. And
Wir
I was
arme Leute, wir arme Leute, and Herr Hauptmann. Always remember this. And now Tuesday I'm gonna see Lulu again
nice.
in Brussels. Yeah, yeah. It was I couldn't understand, but it was really an influence. Yeah, somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so your studies of harmony, um, I'm sure you already had some sort of like musical taste. So did you discover kind of like what you wanted to do then already, or how did that develop?
Yeah, because when I entered the university, I had this group called Classroom, which was before COS,
Yeah.
and with Classroom I was playing guitar in the jazz big band of the university, and that allowed me to meet some guys, and then we made the classroom quartet with it was really as really the shadow of Gary Burton, Larry Coryell, because it was vibraphone, guitar, bass, and drums.
Mhm.
And we were very much impressed by we were not the only one. We were very much impressed by, of course, Gary
Yeah.
Burton, Larry Coryell. And then but we were also doing a lot of Paul Bley. Paul Bley was always an enormous influence on me. I still don't understand how he was doing. Of
Okay.
course, he was an extraordinary piano player, but this instant composing is such an enormous thing that we will never really understand how far Paul Bley went into improvisation. You know,
Mhm.
first of all, he had a extraordinary piano technique, and then he's able to play standards. But because he was playing standards, he was accompanying everybody. But he also his Footloose, his first album, Footloose, um, is incredible. It's just incredible music of that time. Just
Mhm.
incredible improvisation.
Mhm.
What he did after that. So it was big influence on me, and of course Ornette Coleman at that time.
Mhm. And
Uh,
so
yeah,
like like in the case of me meeting you, I was sort of like uh, you know, like when I heard your, like I know those albums like If Windows They Have, or you know, like those already kind of like, even though I didn't know any other stuff you had done, but there was some sort of like something special about them, especially about the harmony that I liked so much. And then I was very lucky to meet you and to also get to study with you and you know, spend time at your house. So did you in your earlier or in your younger years, did you ever spend time with another composer or master, let's say, who kind of like were you
Not
like,
not really.
no?
Not really. I studied with a very advanced composer, Ronald Zollman, who was a chef, and he was like conducting Stravinsky and contemporary music. And I learned harmony with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a kind of very tough guy, you know. He didn't let me. So I was working really hard into this and into new music. And so that was the only. Otherwise, no, not really in contact with. Although as a kid I met, like those composers, but on social things, like But no, not really.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that concerning the I did COS. COS was prog rock like King Crimson. We were not so lucky as King Crimson, but we could have been serious concurrents with King Crimson,
Yes. Yeah.
especially if we would have been British.
Yes.
But we were in the German circuit, and in the German circuit, we were quite successful with COS. And COS is still successful. Just now, Chanel, the famous Chanel, from Coco Chanel, they are taking a piece of COS tam tam chidi chidi tam tam chidi for their Werbung, for the advertisement.
Ah, okay.
So COS is still always there. At the end, COS, it was more like operas, because if you remember, Swiss Chalet is an opera. And
Mhm.
Passiones, especially Passiones, is very much advanced music, especially on the guitar, because we have Van Dormael and Nicolas Fisman, two extraordinary musicians.
Mhm.
And it was very advanced, but it was the concept of opera. After that, I did many operas.
Mhm.
But then, as I was a polytechnician, I was very much, of course, math did play a role in the conduct of harmony. And then at a certain moment, I was interested in voice leading
Mhm.
and in this partitioning of Z, partitioning of Z, and then making chords that partition, and in that putting some modality. Don't forget that at that time I also started the School of Indian Music.
Yeah.
So it was the combining of those mathematical concept of voice leading and of modality, and
In
that that
which year did you start the School of Indian Music?
I saw Ravi Shankar in my first year in '68.
Ah.
And then after that I said, what's that? What's that? And then I started, and there was nobody who was
Mhm.
teaching Indian music. So at the end I went to Amsterdam,
Mhm.
and at that time I was doing film music, a lot of film music, especially Werbung for all big agencies. And then when I was in Amsterdam, there was actually the Indian musicians in Amsterdam. They were coming from Suriname, because Holland had said we are going to accept musicians from Suriname, and so we had the first Indian musicians were there. And then I was always going there to study, but at the moment I said, why don't we start a school in Brussels? And then we had those Indian musicians from Holland coming, and from there we started the school.
Yeah, because I remember when I spent time with you and Ashok Patak was there.
Yes.
To me, it always felt like it was like the early days of the school, but maybe it had already existed. So I don't really know. I don't remember
It
that,
was
but early 90s, right?
You played with Bert Cornelis.
Yes.
Re sa ga re sa re ga re sa de sa ga. We're
Yes.
playing Sivranjani in Rupaktal.
Hmm.
Remember?
I do remember. Yeah,
So,
I have recordings of it
yes,
actually.
yes. It's a very nice raga, and because it has Nisaga with it's a Dorian but
Dorian, it's
pentatonic
Dorian.
Dorian.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very nice, and also Rupaktal is sort of very nice because it's in seven.
yeah.
And I know you like uneven meters, so you were
Hmm.
very happy to start with uh, with uh, with 7 beats Rupaktal.
Yes, yeah, and it's a wonderful melody. So.
Wonderful melody. This raga is very curious in the fact that, in fact, um, there is only very often there is only a raga comes from a melody. So there is a guy playing something, and then everybody says, "Wow!" and then let's make a raga from it.
Hmm.
So always
Hmm.
like Sivranjani, you say to people, "Do you know Sivranjani?" Oh yeah. What can you play? I can play Nisaga. Yeah. So it's like this melody is the basic seed of Sivranjani. You have other compositions, but they basically all come back to that. That's a peculiarity of Indian music. You have to also to know that in Indian music, the difficulty of the meter is proportional to the length. And so, in fact, playing in seven is rather easy because it's always 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So in fact it's easy, but it's like the meter as an influence on the music, which you can say, okay, that's not for me. While if you play in 16, like 4, 4, 4, 4, people will say it's four, but it's more difficult in fact.
It's longer.
So
It's a longer cycle.
it's longer, and the longer the cycle, the more difficult. And
Yeah.
in 16, like playing in four, you say, why do we play in four? But we play in four because it's transparent. In
Hmm.
four, you can make everything, and you don't really feel the meter. So that's
Hmm.
something I learned from Indian music.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So that as you said, it was something that was happening in parallel with your work in contemporary classical music.
Yes, yes. Just a minute, I'm going to close the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to know about what is modality,
Hmm.
modality is a very difficult concept to learn unless you learn Indian music because they
Hmm.
have only modality. And
Yeah.
when you go and study through the raga and it's like recipes, how do we make the chocolate, the mousse au chocolat, the chocolate mousse? You ask your grandmother and she says, don't never put the eggs first, so you learn. It's like a mode. And in
Hmm.
mode, you study Yaman, never play Sahe, it's like,
Hmm.
it's like a recipe.
Hmm.
And more, it's mode. That is mode. Mode is how to. And
Yeah.
in our music, we don't even know basically the difference between mode and scale. Sometimes we don't know what mode is,
Hmm.
because we say the Dorian mode, but Dorian mode is not a mode. It's a rotation of the major scale, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
so it's good to go through Indian music.
No, I
Plus
agree.
plus 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 plus.
No, I totally agree. I must say I learned so much because at that point I really, as you were saying, I had no grasp of the concept of modality. But then studying the Indian classical music with you,
Yeah,
it suddenly starts making sense. And just the fact that you do have the constant drone all the time means that
yeah. Also,
you're really paying attention to the relationships and to the mood generated, right,
oh,
by just this,
that is another very important thing. Is this raza? You play, but if you play and you don't think about the thing you bring to people, the raza, then why?
Mhm, mhm,
So it's like that was the big bad thing about dodecaphonism, is that they didn't care about the effect of their music. They just cared of how the music is done, and that you that you played a fourth where you should. So it was totally that was a very bad thing, that happened to music at that time. But in Indian music, three things: the rhythm, the tala, the mode, and then the rasa. It's like making a flower, it's like making a dessert. You have to please people. And I think that's very important. Yeah, as you say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's fascinating. Like even these I just put out an album with improvisations that I did in the studio earlier this year. And I mean, I can trace it back to to playing with Bert, with Bert and like I can
Yeah,
completely trace it back to that. And yeah, it's it's wonderful. And I teach it now, I teach it in my very own way. And it's yeah, it's very powerful. But let me jump around a little bit, because like we don't have an agenda. So about the idea with harmony for you to like to optimize the voice leading, or to kind of like distribute the 12 notes to make four chords, four triads, right? I mean, you can tell me what else there is, but I know that that is sort of like the foundation of your ideas. How do you remember when you kind of like first came across this idea to use all 12 notes, but in this with this context of having a,
yeah,
harmonic foundation?
yeah. So first of all, in Passiones, the dividing 12 notes into four triads, four major and minor triads, it's in Slonimsky.
Yeah.
So it is in the thesaurus of major and minor. So actually, Wagner in Tristan was trying to take whatever do mi sol, si mi sol, yes, I say it like C
Indeed.
E G B E G sharp, and
Yeah.
going from every note half a tone up, half a tone down, and then from this he was modulating in tonalities that were forbidden before. Like
Yes.
Mozart could not do that, but
Mhm.
Wagner did it. And then people were sitting and they said, "Oh, how beautiful it is!" And so that meant that by using optimized voice leading, you create something that people receive.
Yes.
You know? Wagner was a real Indian musician. Huh? He everything in Wagner touches people. Huh?
Yeah.
There's nothing that doesn't touch people. So in the late 18th century music, you have a 19th century music, you have this idea of voice leading, okay, and it leads to atonality.
Yes.
So for me, I was puzzled because also jazz musicians use that when they do FGC, they also do a partition because they take F, G, and C, and with F, G, and C, you can take all the seven notes
Yeah.
of the major scale, and then a little bit softer you take D minor, G, C, okay, and then you have all the notes in. And so I was saying, what can I find else? Yeah, and again, if you do D minor, G, C, you end up with resolving the B of G to C.
Yeah.
Huh? Because C, do, and then you have a jump of fourth, and like G to C. Okay, so a jump of four in the bass and a half tone in the melody, and I say, okay, let's generalize that and see if I can find something better. And
Mhm.
I tried that. And so I was, of course, when I went to IRCAM and I asked at the time their computer. We didn't have computer at that time. So I made a program in Fortran and I say, what are the other ones that do that? And so I generated 13,000 harmonies, which were partitioning Z12. And I say, what are the ones who are having the best voice leading? And then I came to some interesting voice leading, which I use in all my compositions. And after that I say, okay, that is my that is how that is the way I do compose. You can say to me it's stupid. People did that. People did this. Why are you doing that? I just say you have to use a system, you know, and I use
Mhm.
this system. And the other thing is that um, also the bass movements can be different because you have triads, but the bass movements are free, like in harmony. So I really pictured the rules of harmony are there, plus the Carreaux, plus the idea of searching minimal voice leading. I was not the first to use minimal voice leading, because you had what was it?
Riemann, yeah,
Riemann, the famous German
yeah.
musicologist, and then you had Richard Cohn, who wrote a seminal paper on voice leading.
Mhm.
But maybe I was maybe not the first, but I also wanted to include the idea that jazz musicians also use it, and that a lot of people use it in improvisation. So that's it.
Mhm. And so you just mentioned, so you just used the word Carreaux. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, because carreau means uh, it's when you go in the kitchen, carreau in French means the
Mhm.
tiles,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And so I was using the idea of carreau de Delphes. So tiles partition, like if you partition Z12 into three chords with different notes, it's called tiling. Tiling, partitioning is called tiling, and
Mhm.
from tiling, carreau. But carreau means in Indian, I do.
Oh,
So it's like Carreaux Sangit, where I do music. Sangit, Carreaux Sangit is music, Carreaux Sangit. And so I do, and also a carreau from the French carreau en français. Le carreau, it's like a tile, you know.
I'll, yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was the idea.
Yeah, I remember that you had these books or pages and pages of these Carreaux that you were
Yeah,
making the
I started
circle. Yeah.
I started from those circles. It's also something known, but I was selectioning the carreau with identical tiles, symmetric. Like for instance in Ré mi, do ré fa ré, sol la sol la sol mi, fa sol si sol, ré mi ré si. It was 2 3 3 2 2 3 3 2, and so you know the Carreaux. I mean the first harmony C D F do ré fa is two half tones and three half tones, and the other ones are three half tones, two half tones. So the texture of the chord is 2 3 3 2 2 3 3 2, and then the next big influence I had was this Hans Freudenthal book called uh, Linkos. Just I'm gonna ask that they do a little bit less noise.
Yeah.
Hello all, I'm giving a master class here, so can you please be quiet? Thank you. So Linkos was a lingua cosmica.
Mhm.
The whole family is coming. Maybe you will see Laura. Linkos, because I'm a 4 times grandfather and fast soon 5 times.
Mhm.
Linkos lingua cosmica is the idea that you send in the space tit 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 tit, and then people say, oh, this is some people receive it and they say, oh, this is maybe one one one,
Mhm.
and after that you send tit it tit it tit it tit it, and then they say, oh, so one, and then he's sending two, and then this Hans Freudenthal, he made a book that you do. It's like in Tintin, you know, the unfindable book. And then he made a lingua cosmica that was auto auto-descriptive. And this idea of auto-descriptive, a language that describes its own content was very important for me. And so I decided if you take a structure of 2/3 harmonically, you play 2/3 in rhythm.
Yes.
So you say to the musician, let's do 2/3/3/2, 2/3/3/2, and then they do do re fa re fa do re fa re fa re sol la sol la sol mi sol sol la sol re fa sol si sol la fa sol si sol la re mi re si re mi re si do re fa re, do re fa re do re fa re sol la sol la sol mi sol si mi fa sol si mi la sol si sol la re mi re si re si. And
Yeah.
so I kept that idea because I
Yes.
found it's probably a fundamental idea that with a minimum of code you generate a maximum of rasa.
Yes. Yeah.
So
No,
that was
it's
the idea.
yeah. You know, I when I first listened to your music and learned to play them, I didn't know this. But then obviously, then at some point it all started to make sense. And I agree, like you call it rasa, right? You know, but there is like the musical power of it is kind of like because you're using this simple rule to generate both harmony and the rhythm from the same code. You know, it's
Yeah.
yeah. So in later years, let's say, like you said, you've always applied these ideas in your compositions.
Yes.
Um, so so what I'm interested in, so for example, if you have sort of a longer piece of music, how do you choose the carreaux? How do you choose the? Is there
Well,
is do you have a strategy there as well? So how you
yeah.
combine them?
But more on the rasa point of view.
Hmm.
Like now, I worked so much with my. It's good that you have a system because when you have a system, then you know it, and then you
Hmm.
know when to apply it.
Yes.
So, for instance, in my operas, the long works, like I'm writing now this Kerouac opera, and when I have a very tragic moment, so I am using Carreaux that I know will bring despair and
Ah, I see.
disharmony.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when I am in a very sweet romantic moment, I will use only thirds and seconds.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm not like Lamonte Young who who discards because Lamonte Young discards the ratio of which one he discarded. I think he discards five. He's only using 3, 7, 9, and over. But uh, because he knows one, you have to know your system, and once you know your system, you can compose with it.
So basically, your system or the let's just call them ideas or modules that you have found over the years. Now you can kind of like pick and choose because you already have some sort of idea
Yeah,
what kind of meaning or expression
yeah.
they carry, right? Yeah.
I can give you like an example. I wrote an opera on Christian d'Autremont, this poet. Okay, but before I write a small piece on him, and there was the poetry describes times that flows, and I don't remember if you know in the first Carreaux there was a bijna zomer, and then you have seconds. The seconds are you have 4 seconds that flows da 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 da, all parallel seconds
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
do re si do dièse, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you make those seconds. Da, da, da. Comme par hasard, the other note is making fifth, so it's ideal, and
Mhm.
it's just make time flow,
Mhm.
and then on that. But I don't do it systematically because if you do things systematically, it's boring. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
there, it's there, but but it's there, but people. I don't think people feel it. I don't think they know that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like if you
Mm-hmm.
listen to Hygiène de l'Assassin, it's full of carreaux and it's full of modal things from Indian music,
Yeah.
but there is no Orientalism and there is no maths. It's just
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I like this thought that you're saying, like you have a system and you apply it, but you also kind of like always know when to make an intuitive decision, let's say, right? Like where you
yes,
don't necessarily follow the rules, and that has become a very big thing for me as a composer,
yeah,
because like for me like to maybe add to your idea here, what I was doing is that I said, okay, like as the composer, I can kind of like accept the material which is generated. Let's say you take a generated material, and then I never want to change the material itself, but I want to change the way that I work with it. So it's become
mhm,
very much about, not about questioning the harmonic or melodic material, but to find a better way to compose with it. So,
yeah,
which in sometimes it's the arrangement, it's the orchestration, or it's even something like you were saying, like the bass note is free, right? So maybe something
yeah,
sounds really, it doesn't really, but you put the bass note, which then makes it work. And
yeah, yeah. Plus, you use a fractal
yes,
to in your melody. So I didn't really use fractal, but I sometimes I just use my melodies, which go through Carreaux,
yes,
or sometimes the Carreaux are tied together. The Carreaux will generate a melody because I calculate. You know, I have formulas from Olarin Tarkowski. I have
mm-hmm.
the Carreaux program in Lisp, and I ask, can you generate this? Because I start with, it's like colors. It's like colors. I want to use this Carreaux because I know it's nice. Then I go into Ola's program,
Mm-hmm.
and then I receive the answer of the voicing in between the harmonies. And so that will be the frame of like the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So sometimes I stay on a Carreaux F sharp, A, C, Fa, La, Do, F sharp, A, C sharp, which is 3, 2, which is, and I just write um, 3, 2 of 6, but in
Mm-hmm.
fact it's F sharp minor.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not obliged to do F sharp. It's never written F sharp minor. It's just 3, 2 of 6. They do what they want. It's like a bit. It's not imposing a tonality. It's just imposing a frame.
Yes, yes,
The result is the same. So
yeah.
you could say that I have a catalog of chords and I choose in the catalog.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But basically, it's like the catalog is basically unlimited. Uh, it's all the permutations. All the permutations exist in the catalog, right?
There are 15,000
Potentially.
there are 15,000 lines in the catalog. But don't forget that I use four note chords.
Yes.
Remember, I did work
Hmm.
on the tapping guitar because on the tapping guitar, it's nice when you can do four note chords. This is another topic
Yes.
because it's difficult to play four notes. You know that, huh? It's
Yeah.
not everything is possible because depending on the fingering. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting math music story. What
Hmm.
are the chords you can play? And
Hmm.
just with one hand, not with two hands.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't also depend on the tuning because on your tuning it will the fingers it's the fingers who dictate the low. Huh? Like it's difficult because if you play more notes, you damp the notes and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I'd also do Carreaux with four notes,
Hmm. Hmm.
3 times 4 or 4 times 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The idea of partition is it's making some freshness. You go from one chord to another, and you achieve a maximum of of modulation.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you were saying, like the C major and the D minor chords, and
Yeah,
you're only missing the B, right? And that's why people take the 5 chord also. And, yeah, obviously. And but the idea to kind of, I like this because now I really understand also why I compose the way that I compose. So you know, my student, my teacher in when I was in the high school, he was a student from of Gensmer, Harald Gensmer, and Harald
Yes.
Gensmer was a student of Hindemith, right? So there's the direct lineage, like from my teacher then. And I remember that my teacher was very particular about like the use of the word atonal, because Hindemith says there is no such thing. You know,
There
you
is
can,
no
you can
atonal music.
no, there's only free tonal. You know, like that's the term that
Yeah,
Hindemith
yeah.
used. So now what I wanted to say, so like your idea to kind of like take the idea that is present in your example from standard jazz, let's say, and to kind of translate that idea into the space of all 12 notes. I think that's wonderful. I mean, it's such a obvious, in a way, it's such an obvious thing, but to really put it into practice like you did is and it kind of like generates these magical progressions of chords.
Yeah, yeah, because in jazz, like you say, two minor, one, two minor, five, six, for instance, it's
Mhm.
not partitioning, but the idea is there.
Yes,
And it's partitioning seven notes, but the
yes,
idea is there, and they use it therefore. And of
yes.
course, Herbie Hancock is not anymore playing such simple harmonies. And probably he's also looking for that kind of concept.
Yes,
But
yeah.
then I say to people, okay, you want all the one, two, five, six? They are there. They are there.
Mm. But
Please
you
use
know,
them.
yes, and it's fascinating that you brought up the Wagner, the Tristan overture,
Yeah,
because it really is the sort of like the prime example for using the diminished chord to go anywhere,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and yeah.
And also it's kind of analyzable.
Hmm.
There has been like thousands different analyses of the Ouverture of Tristan,
Hmm.
and I can do mine now if you want.
No, that's not necessary, but
It's very simple. It's very simple. He had his piano. He was not a great piano player. He was playing whatever C major, and then he was moving the fingers one by one, and then he was going from one to another.
yeah.
You know, we cannot omit the one who had the great system that we all are jealous about him. Huh?
Hmm.
It's old Bach.
Bach, of course, yeah.
But he found the system, and we say, "Oh boy, this guy found the system. I wanted to find this system." And with this system, he composed thousands different pieces, which all sound great.
Hmm.
And and so yeah, so we are all very jealous of him.
How would you describe his system? How does he do it?
He's doing the same thing as me, exactly the same thing as me, but he doesn't use so much, you know, like he's using sparingly diminished chords, like he's using B, D, F, A without a root, and but he's using quite a lot. But he's a master in contrapunct. Huh?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
He's having a thematic idea,
Mhm.
but he's using all the, march 2 5 2 6 1 5 he's using 2 2 5 1. He's using very harmonic, a
Yeah.
reduced number of harmonic ideas, but with such a genius.
You know, I've
And he,
recently started studying Bach again because I'm teaching it to my students, and we're
yes,
analyzing pieces together. And there was like I think I pretty much understood everything even 30 years ago, but now what I understand is that he was actually also doing the modal stuff. That he was the one who was really doing the Dorian and the Aeolian, and for him it was something different. You know, it was very different from how other
yeah,
composers. were understanding drones in the music, and also because like when you look at his pieces where he composes like just a monophonic voice, where he finds a way to so that each note in the monophonic voice is both melody and harmony. So it kind of like sets the harmony in motion and primes the brain to hear the next note a certain way, and
Yeah.
fascinating.
I think for him the melody is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's taking a theme, but then the
Mm-hmm.
theme is coming everywhere
Mm-hmm.
in all the other voices,
Mm-hmm.
and respecting a kind of harmony. It's quite puzzling, huh?
It's I think it's just so joyful for me, you know. I don't even
Yeah.
need to hear the music. I just analyze the score, and it's pure joy, you know.
No, the most crazy story is when the Frederick der Zweite hears that Old Bach is in town. So he says, "Hey, to the guards, Old Bach is in town. Get him." Then they get him, and Old Bach comes, and I don't know. Old Bach was not seeing very well. The poor guy,
Mhm.
not seeing very well anymore. And then Frederick says, "Here is my theme." Da, 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 big chromatic. And then he says, "Can you do something?" And then Old Bach goes. 2 weeks later, he comes back with with
Yeah.
incredible thing. The most incredible is the reverse thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Just two
Yeah.
boys.
The inversion backwards. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
ridiculous.
crazy.
Yeah.
He had his son. His son was in the band.
Hmm.
Yeah,
His son
it's
was in the
crazy.
band.
The son of Bach was in the band. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy story. He was
Mhm.
playing flute. Not the one who was drinking, who sold all the scores. The other one was just a musician.
Okay. Hmm.
I don't forget. I forgot the names because it's too much complicated. So, and then Hindemith is the next guy. I was really interested in Hindemith because small talk, he wrote the smallest treatise on harmony, just the volume one is, and it's
Hmm.
very small talk. It's just genius, this thing. And the
Hmm.
exercises are quite difficult. And I always use that with my students because, you know, there's nothing better than him. And
Hmm.
he's really small talk. So- And he also wrote 24 preludes and fugues.
Ludus Tonalis.
He was very courageous.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one of the tests in high school was a piece from Ludus Tonalis where we had to recognize that in the middle it goes backwards. Yeah, it was one of these games, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And coming back to the tapping guitar, for me, it was also the fact that tapping guitar is a Cartesian space. Space Cartesian, because with orthogonal.
Hmm.
And so that also played a role in the fact that the Carreaux are very much seeable on the tapping guitar. On the
Yes.
on the piano, it's not so easy, but just to make a 2-3 and a 5-1 on the tapping guitar is easy, and you can actually play and see the movements. You can even find geometric things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's because you basically have your like each string is like its own
a
line,
y-axis.
its own voice
Each
also.
string is a y-axis, and each fret is a x-axis.
Hmm.
And you just place a point in the space. So that's very nice. There was a thank you, Emmet, that
Hmm.
he get rid of the third, because
Yes.
at last we had a purely Cartesian space, which was not tonally influenced.
Yes.
That was a big thing
Yeah. Yeah.
he brought in.
And in the beginning, when you started playing the stick, you were still using the fifth in the bass, right? At the very
Yeah,
beginning.
fifth in the bass, crossed hands,
Hmm.
and then I have nothing against fifths, but for readers it's inconvenient. If
Yeah.
you read music, it's inconvenient. Like
Yes.
all those, like let's talk about Wolfgang Dies, all the readers, Kai Kurozawa, fourth, and then of course uncross, because
Yeah.
crossing puts you using the half of the. Although some people like Jim Lampy use it anyway, like they
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
but
Exactly.
it's true that uncrossed it,
Hmm.
and then that's it, just that. Yeah, but it's the same instrument basically.
So, but on Pasiones, you played the stick already, right?
I played the stick in fifth, fourth. Yeah, I decided to quit the guitar over 1 year.
Hmm.
So I was in Swiss Chalet. I was playing the guitar, and in Passionis only the stick.
Yeah.
So
But
every time we went on tour, I was playing one piece more on the stick,
mhm. But
and then
you had a beautiful Les Paul, right?
yeah, but I still have it.
You still have it? I've never seen it. You've never shown it to
No,
me. No.
I still have it. It was transformed, in fact. I did make the neck more. First of all, it felt on the ground, like you know.
Hmm. And,
Then when it was repaired, the head was broken, and when it was repaired, I asked that they reduce the, because I found the neck too large.
mhm.
So they made a little uh, less high neck, and they made an ebony touch, and they took the dots away. You know,
Mhm.
I hated fixed dots on the, because I have my system of C dots, and I didn't want so that's it. Many times I was playing the actually the guitar in fourth with C dots already at the time. So
But you still had the third, right? You were still using the third on the
yeah, many
guitar?
times when I was like, for instance, playing jazz or playing avant-garde things, I was tuning in fourth. Mi la re
Hmm.
sol do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, for the guitar, it makes sense because when you make barré and you play tonally, it's true that it's nice to have this E minor tuning of Fernando
Yeah.
Sor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but if you play real jazz, you know, there was this guy, oh, now I forget his name, who came in with the idea of playing only four note chords,
Hmm.
like we do a bit on the tapping guitar when we play standards, just playing the third, the seventh, and not playing the fifth and
Yes.
playing the bass. And there was a guy who wrote a method, and it was kind of very nice
Hmm.
for the guitar. Yeah, playing only four note chords with just the root and yeah,
No fifth.
no fifth.
Hmm.
You play the fifth if you can in the melody somewhere, but you learn to play those little chords, minor seven, like we do actually on the stick and on tapping
Yeah.
guitar,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's very handy. In fact, like playing my favorite things on the guitar, it's 6 months work, but on the tapping guitar, it's just very easy because you play the chords with one hand and you play the melody with the other.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
for playing in bars and reading the real book, it's really a very much a very great idea, extraordinary
Yes.
idea.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Now, what my research now is the like more new harmonies. Like you can do extraordinary chords. You can do four note chords with the right hand, three notes with the left hand, rather easy.
Hmm.
And plus, it's a very modal instrument because you can have a fretless bass, and then
Hmm.
you can move the chords, push the chords. So it's not like the piano. It's really something more, and there is much
Yeah.
to discover.
Yeah. Completely. I agree.
Mm.
So you went to the fourth tuning and on the bass side and the uncrossed, as you were saying. And
Yes.
I'm trying to remember, like when I first met you, you were still probably not 100% on the uncrossed.
You know, I was in
Yeah.
fifth, and then I met Jim Lampy.
Yeah.
Jim Lampe say, play in fourth the bass, no problem. So I say,
Hmm.
okay, I play in fourth, but I had a 10th string. So it
Hmm.
was terrible because it was, when you play the fifth, you have a big ambitus, but when you play the fourth, it's depressing.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I wrote to Emmett. I say, what can you do? He say, oh, don't worry, I am building a grand stick. So he
Hmm.
sent me a grand stick, and then it was great because I was playing in fourth, but I had the habitus. I had the yeah, and
The
then
range. Yeah.
I saw Thierry Carpentier playing uncrossed in fifth. So that was yeah, and then uh, and then I think who was the first to play in fourth? I don't really remember,
Me neither.
but because Kuno Wagner was also uncrossing fifth, fourth.
Hmm.
He was playing
Well.
like Thierry Carpentier. They were the first guys to uncross. Thierry Carpentier just because he's an accordionist.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in fact, excuse me, but playing crossed is not a good idea. But I
Hmm.
don't want. I know people like the thing, but it's not a good idea because it's reducing your yeah.
Yeah.
And then fourth. I don't know. After that, I'm all the readers were playing fourth because it's very difficult to play fifth. You have
Yeah.
genius in fifth four, like you have Randy Strom who is playing like a real master, playing the fifth like it was fourth. There's
Yeah.
plus the advantage of fifth because you get some chords position easily.
Hmm.
But if you take, for me, the greatest master in reading, we have Wolfgang Dice. He's only doing that because it's in 4/4. I think it would be very difficult to play in 5/4.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
For me, the greatest influence was Jim, obviously, Jim Lampe.
yeah, yeah.
So like on my first course or meet a stick seminar with you in 90, it was in 93. I remember the dates, the year.
I never remember the date.
It was wonderful because Frank Jolliffe was there and
Yes,
Jim Lampe was there, and it was just incredible. And André Pellard was there,
yes. Also
and
a magician. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it
All
was
those.
just wonderful introduction. And back then, like when you were still allowed to use it to call it the stick seminar, um,
Yeah,
those were the days.
yes. No, Frank Jolliffe was also a big influence because first of all he was writing scores for this,
Hmm.
and I mean real writing, not like with like those triangles and those circles and blah blah
Yeah,
blah, trying to
yeah,
reinvent the music notation. He was really writing music for it, and he was swinging so much.
yes,
It was really a extraordinary player like Randy. So those guys were really jazz players with grooving rhythm and excellent rhythm. Jim Lampe, he's an innovator in the sense that his hands are flying on the neck and you never know what he's going to do. He has no rules.
hmm, hmm,
And he's playing with the thumb like a cellist. And he has no rules. So, and he's very cautious about his sound, very cautious
yes,
about it. He has an excellent rhythmicity.
hmm, hmm,
So he's an example, definitely.
yeah. Of like for me, the greatest stick player, like back then and still, in a in the way that the stick as a stick with the
Yeah,
fifth
yeah.
and the fourth,
It's,
and the way
yeah,
that
yeah,
he uses everything, and with a great tone, and the
yeah.
power, and the speed of the fingers, and like these things that were really, back then as a beginner, they seemed like very far away to be capable,
Yes,
to do something like that. And
yes.
I it's I'm still very grateful that I got to meet him.
Yeah, still, he's very creative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then you, because
And
I
the
remember I was very much impressed by to be honest, I didn't understand why you stay on one region. That was the big
Hmm.
difference between you and me.
Yes.
I say, oh, it's so nice to have two regions because for the creativity and for the harmony first, huh?
Yeah.
But okay, you will tell me that I'm not playing one region. I am playing, in fact, two regions. So I agree with you.
Hmm.
But I was very much impressed by your prelude,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is quite a piece of music. And I tried to play it. It's just okay. You need 3 4 months studying it. Huh?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's
You
it's a
know, you Daniel, for me, the one region was more of a reaction, let's say, to the fact that I wanted to kind of like bring the instrument forward somehow and to have a smaller space of possibilities. In the end, it turned out it's not so much smaller, but at the beginning it was like, okay, I want to use this instrument more as an ensemble player, you know, with other people. So it was not so
yes,
important. It was not so important to play, you know, two parts
solo.
at the same time, solo or whatever, right?
Yes, yes.
So that was kind of like my thinking, and in a way, kind of like also driven by the experience of studying Indian classical music with you somehow, where it was became
Um,
more about sort of integrating the hands into one instrument, so to play the melodies between the hands and get this more holistic sense of my whole being kind of like pouring into the playing, you know. So it was more about that. So I don't have a problem with the with two regions at all. It was just
yeah.
for me, I just wanted to get it like more into depth of the unifying aspect, because the whole idea of the tap guitar is amazing, right? Like
Yes, of course, it's amazing.
and you know, like I
And
have, you know, with the fifth tuning, like this is something that I don't think we even have talked about. I found the system, took me a long time, but I found a system where all the fingerings can be mirrored. So you can have like the exact same fingering starting like on the left hand or on the right hand. And it's so wonderful because that kind of like means that you like everything kind of like comes together in such a beautiful way, where this or let's say one of the original ideas to play two parts kind of becomes very attractive again when you have experienced how the, you know, when they can really come together and go apart, and you have like both available, and you can flip the roles of the hands around and stuff like that. It's wonderful.
you mean like when you play the Chapman tuning, you can think that it is fourth. Then you have do re mi fa sol la si do.
No,
That's what you
no,
mean.
that's not what I mean.
Mm.
So for example, if you it's very simple. So if you take C, D, E, F, G, 5 notes,
Yeah,
right? And you play them in by covering 8 frets on one string. So then
yeah,
you play, you know, C, D, E, F, G. So one,
yes, yes.
three, 1, 2, 4. Very simple. So now what you
Mm.
can do is you can put this hand on the C. So, and then you can put this finger on the E
Yeah,
on two adjacent strings. So then you have
yeah,
C, D, E, F, G. So you have the same fingering, right? You see, like it's the same finger, the same
yeah, yeah.
number of the fingers, but you
Mhm.
simply flip the hands around. And that was a major discovery, to kind of like learn everything in both ways. So yeah, and it then kind of like, because you know I improvise a lot, you know, I love improv, and I love instant composition, and for me it really brought everything together, that I didn't have to think of one hand as being sort of like more of a starting hand than the other, you know. So that's really why it was such a revelation.
Yeah, Jolliffe called that leapfrog play. Yeah, remember? Frank
Yeah, I
Jolliffe said
remember. Yes,
leapfrog because you're playing C, D, E, F, G with the other hand. So
yes, yes, yeah,
you,
exactly.
you cut the melody. You cut the melody into in between the two hands.
Yes. Mhm. Yeah.
So you are doing like the Beatles. First, first achieving speed with kind of two hands things, tapping.
Yes.
Not only that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just a choice.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Also, what would me I think fifth is very interesting, very interesting. I still have instruments tuned in fifth. Like when I teach stick, I of course I play the fifth. It's very
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm.
It makes you
Mhm.
very creative. But I play uncrossed, of course. I have an uncrossed stick fifth for
Mhm.
uh, f- because it was rare in the beginning. I think only Red Mitchell was playing the bass in fifth, in the famous Jimmy Giuffre, uh, uh, what was his name? Jimol, Red Mitchell. Very creative music, incredibly creative music. Yeah,
Well, that some double bass players they play in fifth, right?
very rarely.
It's very rarely, but there are.
Yannick Top in Magma,
Hmm.
yeah, because he's a cellist.
Hmm.
Very rarely.
Hmm.
The thing is also with the two region is that our left hand, we are all bad piano players. Normally, we should be as good with the left hand and the right hand. And this is very rarely, I say rarely in quote big like the case. Usually, the left hand is like nothing
Hmm.
compared to the right hand. The right hand is very fluid, blah, 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 but
Hmm.
the left hand is doing like a drone or the chords, or
Yeah.
it's rare that you achieve that you we're still waiting for the next Paul Bley on the tapping guitar.
We are, yes. Yeah, I'm still hoping for like the young students that kind of like start with all the knowledge that we all have accumulated, and somebody
Yeah,
to really start in the beginning, like from a much higher level of knowledge, and I think
yes,
there's still so much possible there. So yeah, I was actually thinking to maybe next year to have some sort of stipend for students, to offer some stipendium, uh,
yeah,
um, and just offer like a free instrument, just to borrow an instrument and then to give free lessons for a year or something like that to a group of 3 young people or something. I feel like I want to do something like that.
you mean in a music school?
With a music school, or just even like, because it's difficult for people to kind of like even to find 3 people interested in the stick here in Berlin is difficult. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think nowadays it needs to be something that happens online, really,
yeah,
as
yeah.
and it's not a problem. So but I think I would like to continue kind of like my efforts in education for the tap guitar.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Uh, As you know, I'm very much involved in that.
I know. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I came with some concepts like the C dots and things, which not don't convince everybody, but
Mhm.
for me as a mathematician, they are the nice thing is that they are reproduced. It's science, you know, like the concept on position. I just wanted to ask you to participate to a meeting on the on the conception of position.
Yes.
So for me, they are like stones. If
Mhm.
people learn this system, they have something consistent, you know.
Yes.
And I think it's very important. I see so many students who are coming from some teaching and going in all direction, and then it will be their progress will be slower than
Yes.
if they come with strong concepts.
Exactly.
Especially if you want to sight read, because with sight read you don't look at you don't have time to look at your. People think that I have made the C dots to look at them, but no, I make the C dots to be in my space. So it's in your space, but you read the music and you look the musicians. You certainly don't look. That's very important that you look at it.
Yeah.
You are the first one who never looks. I sometimes you are. I think you maybe have an operation to keep the head up, but
But
it's important.
that the C dots, I completely agree with them, and the way that I have kind of like incorporated the idea into my teaching
Yeah.
is I teach people the C major scale in very deep way, so that it's almost as if you have the keyboard with the white keys and the black keys.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so that the natural notes become sort of like the default, that you kind of like know the fretboard so well that you
Yes.
know what, and then from there to extrapolate other tonalities is very, very easy.
Not easy, but at least you can play C major.
Yeah, but also
And
if because like the students also learn the concept of modality, as you were saying before, at the same time. So like you learn your C major, but you also learn how to, by changing one note at a time, you kind of
yes,
like change the modality, and changing modality is kind of the same as changing keys if you take into account the bass drone, right? Change the bass drone.
yes,
And I think like the C dot system is a great, and like every beginner on a stick like instrument, especially if you have two regions, I think the C dots are amazing.
yeah, because first of all, they don't spend 20 minutes to find a C,
Mm.
searching. They have it there, and so they look less, in fact.
It's sad sometimes, like even like when yeah, it's really kind of like the test, right? To ask somebody to play an A on a stick, and if
Yeah,
it takes like 30 seconds to find the A.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and also some of them say, "Oh, there is a A," because
Uh,
they know relatively to the markings of the
yeah,
stick. But
yeah,
it's very bad because then when they will want to change their tuning, they will be
mhm.
dependent on that tuning. So
Yeah,
those
of
guys
course.
will never change. They will never experiment.
Mhm.
Like for instance, they say, It's too low. I want to raise my strings, or I want to play in whatever." And then they are so the advantage of C dots is that you just take them away and put them one fret up, one fret down,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it. And then
It,
of course, yeah,
so
please.
currently on your instrument, what is the lowest string? Like do you have a C on the
It's a
second
C.
fret, or the
It's a
open,
C.
like the open string would be C, or
A C. Yeah,
yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
the same C as on the double bass,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
then
the melody region is
I think I go to a D.
okay. Mm-hmm.
But I play completely symmetric. I play on the same frets, octave apart and mirrored.
Mm-hmm.
Why I play mirrored is because I believe that the hands are mirrored.
Yes.
So for me it's natural. For me it's not natural to do like this, parallel fourth, because your one hand goes like this and the other one's pull.
Mm-hmm.
It's not natural.
Mm-hmm.
So this is nice. This it was also the idea of Emmett, but crossed. I
Yes.
don't know
Yes.
why he made crossed. They say it's more comfortable, but they are always like doing like this.
Yeah, there's possibly also the technical reason of having the fat string in the middle, which gives it
Yeah,
more stability. Yeah.
it's true that me, I have the big strings on the side,
Mhm.
and but it's okay. But you
Yeah.
you need to put some more space. If the strings are really, if the neck is very narrow, then the
Mhm.
strings will jump. But if you have some space, yeah.
Mhm.
And then you have the idea of Wolfgang. He also is symmetric, but going from the strings are in the middle. So
Yeah.
that means his left hand is playing the guitar because he's a guitar player. But then the melody you play like this. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
kind of. but why not?
Yeah, why not? It also makes sense. Yeah, I
And
think.
me also something that retained me from your instrument. But when you are going to make a two-region one, why not? Because I know they are very good, your instruments. I know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, two region instruments exist, 10-string instruments exist,
Yeah,
but we're like, so well, you know, I have sort of passed the designs onto Stefan Huth.
yeah, I know, I know,
He's
yeah,
now
yeah,
running, so I'm not part of the company anymore, but you know, my original idea is to make the instrument that will be not make it too hard for people. So for example, I remember when I started, I had a 10-string stick first and then the 12-string. But then I realized, like, if I had started with 12 strings, it would have been very, very difficult because of the width and kind of like, you know, for me, you obviously, because it was crossed, right? So it was crossed still.
yeah, yeah,
That's why I was thinking, okay, let's do 8-string, because if people start with the 8-string, they can always go to 10 or 12, but you start from a position of, this works, and you can kind of like make that work more easily. Because also, like, when I visited your seminars, I was seeing a lot of people who were kind of like almost in despair because they didn't, it was so difficult for them. Like there was something about the concept which was difficult to grasp for them. So my motivation with the U8 was to make something where people don't get frustrated. You know,
yeah.
that's the whole idea, and that's why for the time being, I don't really support the idea of 12 strings, because I agree, if it's uncrossed, problem solved somehow. But with the original idea of crossed, I don't really want 12 strings.
Also, something that was making me nervous is that you had a third and a second.
Yeah,
And as you know me, this idea of Cartesian space was very important
yes,
for me. I was not going to go for a third and second again, because again,
yeah,
it's a peculiarity,
it
and you
is.
cannot translate the voicings. Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. I know what you mean. So because it is, and this was also something that I was very aware of, that it's more of a traditional guitar in the sense,
it's
because
a
it does.
crafty thing. Yes, yeah,
It's not well, it's sort of like as an open tuning. That's sort of like the idea. So you use everything, you use fifth as far as possible. So you have
yeah,
six strings
yes,
tuned in fifth, and then basically you repeat two pitches that are already on the fretboard, right? And that way you get an open tuning. And also, like with the U8, the lowest note the lowest note you can comfortably play is the second fret of the lowest string, and it's a do, it's a C,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So everything is kind of laid out on the instrument in C major. So the idea is, like, if you kind of start to learn the instrument, it's sort of like, as you say, this idea of the C dot, but without the dots. So you learn where the C's are, and then
Yeah.
you go from there. And yeah,
If
I
I played the U8, I immediately knew what I would do. I would lower the whole thing so that I don't have to have this third and this second.
yeah, but doesn't work, because the lowest string is already B flat.
Yeah,
So that's why, and
yeah,
I don't want to, the instrument, I don't want to make the instrument longer to
no,
have a
no,
lower
no.
string. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But there would be a way to do a 6-string instrument in fifth, which would be cool.
Yeah, but yeah, you consider yourself more as a melodist than
Yes.
a
Yeah,
full harmonicist.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I understand. Yeah,
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 yeah. And
yeah,
like after 20 years of playing with a tuning like that, and for me it's almost 30 years playing with the fifth tuning, because before, as you say, I did the crafty tuning on the acoustic
yeah, yeah.
guitar, and before that I was playing mandolin. So for me, the
Yes.
fifth tuning is something like super natural. And
Yes.
but the funny thing is, and here I'm totally with you also, like whenever I pick up an instrument in fourth, I can play it immediately.
Yeah.
It's easy, right? It's easy. Like,
It's very
or
easy.
yeah, like
And
or
therefore,
stand.
when you for sight reading, it's very important.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing you do is that you use a lot. Your music is uses a lot of computer because you are very
Yeah,
often playing with your with your computer. Ge- I don't know how you generated chords. I think the work I made chorale influenced you a lot because I hear, I say, oh, I know where this is coming, but it's it's nice actually. It's
yeah,
nice. You're using much more than me. I'm using more musicians, and I bought Ableton, but I don't use it.
yeah.
So I should, but I,
But
I don't know.
like we were talking about IRCAM and like your relationship with IRCAM also. And for me, using the laptop is like doing contemporary composition with tools
Yeah,
that capture and rearrange the things I play. And originally, before the laptop times to do this, though, so for me it started in 2005 to have a laptop on stage. um, so before that,
yeah, I remember.
I was carrying around this big rack with two loopers in them, and yeah, and
Yes, yes,
I remember carrying them to Belgium many times.
yes. And also we made a concert together in Braunschweig
Yes,
at
exactly.
Matthias Sorov, and you
Yes,
were playing this, so I was very much impressed. And Mia was playing with Sandeep and Carreaux and Fabrice de Graaf. So it was
yes,
totally different. Yeah,
yes, yes, yeah.
that was the tapping guitar brought in Indian music, which is actually also a subject because I play in India and I played a lot in India, and
Hmm.
Indian musicians didn't have any problem with that. And you
Yeah.
know what? Indian singers, they prefer the tapping guitar than the harmonium. And it's not difficult because harmonium is a terrible instrument. And tapping guitar is they like, it's very sweet.
Hmm.
And also you can do the shrutis. Like if she's doing a low E flat, you do the low E flat.
Hmm. Hmm.
I even developed the Kurozawa technique, which is you bend the note and then you plug it with the finger.
Yes, and then you
It's
let it
called.
go. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how he calls it.
Hmm.
He calls it bass, blah blah blah. Bref, it's back to the old guitar. You pluck with the same hand, but
Yeah.
the advantage is that if you hear she's doing a very low E flat, and you don't want to come with a high E flat, you put your finger on the D, you pull, and then slowly you.
You release.
I
Yeah.
think also it's very important because the sound of plucking is very much sweeter than the sound of tapping. The
Hmm.
problem of the sound of tapping is that there is no dynamic. It's always blow. You know, you can do a little bit softer, but you don't have as much as variety as when you pluck. Especially on very bass note, when you play a bass note and you play a low G, and then you pluck and you have boah, a G of a double bass. But if you dang, it's not the same thing.
Hmm.
So we, we,
Yeah.
we should always consider both techniques.
Yeah, of course, and that's also what the U8 is made for, because you can play it like a regular guitar. And
Yeah,
I always kind of nowadays I always mix and match the techniques anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like I kind of like I disagree a little bit with with the idea of the dynamics. I think it's possible, but it requires a lot of study of the technique, because as you know, like what the dynamics in the instrument, they come from the speed of the finger, like how fast does the finger come down, and it just requires a lot of really strict
I agree,
drilling of
but
technique.
the attack will be different. The attack will
I,
always be a attack of a tap, while it's more like the attack of an arco. In fact, with the finger, the
yeah.
attack is much softer.
So, for example, when I played some of the Robert Fripp parts in the Crimson Project, I had the opposite problem, because I wanted it to sound more like a pick. So I needed to find a way to play with a very, very strong, very short attack to get the sound of the pick to go
Yes.
that like 162 BPM, 16th notes, like the little like that. And it is possible. It's possible. I think it's possible to go in both directions to make it like very staccato, like very, very precise, but also to make it more soft than the instrument is usually associated with. But I know what you mean, especially because it just requires a lot of study to make it work. Yeah.
But really, the sound is different. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
the
if you
sound,
want
obviously.
the sound of a bass string, and you pull, you have it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with heavy instruments.
And I started with a classical guitar anyway. So I like from the very beginning, I had this idea of like using the meat of the fingertip versus the nail and all these different sounds coming from the right hand. That was always. I remember in the beginning, it felt like I was really restricted in the expression with the tap guitar, but it changed over the years. Now I feel like I can do most things I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a seminar about classical guitar with Rod Serrao. You know him, the
Yes.
guy from Portugal. He's playing a lot of classical guitar stuff, and it's nice. He plays it on the stick. He also plays it on another instrument. I forgot the name. So it's an interesting subject because all this classical guitar literature is very
Literature.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've worked with some people on transcribing a classical guitar literature onto the U8, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Which is it works really well.
What did you do?
Um,
Villa-Lobos?
yeah, Villa-Lobos. The other guy, I can't remember now. Like I'm working with one guy on this one particular piece where I was originally thinking, oh, will it work or will it not work? And I didn't really know. But then there's always a way to finger it. But like I say, in this unified idea, just like when you play a classical guitar and you play two voices with 4 fingers, right? So it's a little bit like that. But then you use your 8 fingers, and sometimes a note goes from here, from left hand second finger to right hand second finger, and like that. And it's a nice feeling when it comes together. It's sort of like, for me, it's a little bit more satisfying than the original, like the idea from the piano, where the left hand is the lower notes and the right hand is the higher notes. So yeah, I mean, there's still so much to explore.
Yeah, but to be honest, I love the sound of classical guitar, but I'm so happy that I'm away from it because
Yeah.
it sucks me really. It was terrible to play anything like you wanted to play. I like to play standards in bar. It's my I like that. To play my favorite things, it's just takes months, and when you play it on the tapping guitar, it's just in and a half an hour you're there. So that's a problem with tapping it. I like the guitar. I really like the classical guitar when other guys play it.
Yes.
The sound, Leo Brouwer. When I
Yeah,
listen to Leo Brouwer, I pull my hairs out. What a work!
it's beautiful. Yeah.
But the sound is beautiful. The sound is really beautiful. Yeah. But it's very complicated to play. So I admire people who play that. And you also use a lot of Mac sounds. You create your own sounds.
I don't well, yeah, I create my own how do you say, processes in the but I mostly use Ableton. I don't have to use anything extra, because when you know how to use Ableton, you can do all the LFOs, and everything is built into it, so you don't even have to go deep to program it, because it's already available in the software, so yeah. But it's and I still do the composition with the fractals, and I have kind of like found an alternative way to do the fractals. So one way is still to use the what I call play notes, which I programmed at your place, Uh,
Yes.
yes,
Fractal, yes.
yeah. But I have found an alternative way, which is more of a permutational fractal. So it's a different, but I found a way to simply set that up in Ableton very easy, because all you need is like a modulation of pitch, and
Ah,
I discovered that around 2005, and then started to make some compositions with that. Also, the big orchestral piece, the Todmorden 513,
yes.
is using that process, and yeah, it's
Then you should check OM, Open Music, because in Open Music you can just calculate whatever you want.
yeah, I know,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
and you
yeah,
can
it's
even generate the sound.
yes,
It's in fact it's a graphical Lisp, you know. It's a graphical Lisp, and Lisp
hmm
is ideal for manipulating notes.
yes,
Like you take a
yeah,
047 and you say what's the inverse, and Lisp says it's 740. And you can do it in any language, but in Lisp it's just native.
yeah, yeah,
Because Lisp manipulates lists, as you
mm,
know.
yes.
So it's a very important thing, but not easy. Ola Rintakowski did all the work for me, but I'm using a lot his program. But in OM, you can do that very easily.
So the program he wrote for you still works for you on which computer
Carreaux,
do?
yeah, I use Carreaux every day when I compose. Yeah,
And
definitely.
so and it still runs on your current
Yeah,
computer,
because
or
it's written in Lisp. I have a Lisp compiler, you know,
okay, so
no problem.
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
And then I call Ola and I say, can you do that? And he is doing next day. He's my
I haven't seen him in over 10 years, I think.
Yeah, we made a conference at the IRCAM on the Carreaux
hmm
once,
hmm I
and
remember that.
he came and he was we had demonstration and everything.
hmm
And then even Jean Bresson, who is now with Ableton, he even programmed the Carreaux into OM, generating of Carreaux. But I didn't really try it personally because I'm not advanced enough. But Ola did Ola is trying.
hmm
I asked to Ola, why don't you put the Carreaux in OM? Because OM, everybody uses OM. It
hmm
is the algorithmic language.
hmm Hey Daniel, so maybe to kind of like come to some sort of end, I would like to
Yes,
you to maybe so in the 80s when you had Carreaux, the ensemble, right? That started in the 80s, I think, and then you had all the operas that
yes.
I remember I was there for some premieres even
Yeah, with Amélie Nothomb,
with
Irène de la
Amélie.
Salle.
Yeah,
Yes,
I was there for that. That was
yes,
amazing. Yeah. Um, so like your composition work continues to this day. You said you're working on a new opera right now.
yes. I'm
Um,
writing a new opera right now.
and I saw on your website we can find all sorts of information and scores and your examples of scores, and also videos of the performances and recordings, and
Yes.
yeah, and
The one I wrote on Christian d'Autremont, which is really a poet, which is also doing these graphics. This
mhm,
one is very well documented.
mhm, yeah,
Called
yeah,
Neige de Soleil. That's very well documented.
mhm,
My operas on Amélie Nothomb are less documented, but you can find some excerpts on it.
mhm,
And then now I'm writing an opera on Kerouac, and it
mhm.
took me a lot of time to do. But now I start and I found a language.
What is the
So
idea? What is the idea behind it?
Kerouac is for me not the guy from on the road. He's an extraordinary lyric person writing poetry in prose.
Mhm,
And his language is extremely powerful. And when I read this, it took my heart. You know, I said I want to do that. It's just as simple as that. And
mhm,
it took me 10 years to get the rights. Of course,
mhm,
it was very complicated to get. But then finally, I met the family somehow,
Mhm.
And I took two novels of him, Big Sur and The Dharma Bumps, and I wrote a libretto on that, and it's very interesting because he also came with a spontaneous prose writing. You can imagine how that is close to me. He
Mhm.
loved jazz and poetry, but he was reading Dostoevsky. So I
Mhm.
really like, this is really the guy I needed to work on.
Mhm. Mhm. And so you've just started writing, or what is
Well,
this?
I'm busy, but I'm starting to do the demo now.
Mhm.
I do a few.
Wow.
I start a few demos. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Took time to find a style,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's it.
Mhm. Do you already know which instrumentation you want for it?
It's a double thing. It's a string quartet and a jazz quartet
Ah.
because this way I render the bipolarity of Kerouac writing,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's extensible. The harmonies are extensible to a bigger ensemble, but it will be mostly more like sinfonietta because it's based on soloist, you know.
Yeah.
Like the main instrument is this alto saxophone player, and it should be a good saxophone player. There is a drum player. It should be a guy who feels it, you know. So it's really
Mhm.
mixed
Mhm.
between quote jazz and classical.
Mhm. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. In like 3 weeks I start the first demo. Actually,
Yeah.
I do my demos I do with Finale in the Garitan.
Mhm. Yeah.
Then I wait that in fact it's so good that you hardly when you have a singer or over that it's difficult to say hey do you use yeah, like if you do the alto saxophone that's better to take an alto saxophone, but if you use ensemble it's really convincing.
Yeah. For the demos, it's good enough. But
Yeah,
then there's always a huge difference if if you hear real musicians play
yeah, of
it.
course, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, or opera is very expensive.
Mhm.
You know the three ways to ruin yourself. having a
Opera.
mis Yeah, having a mistress, having a Ferrari, or producing an opera. I always heard this joke. That's really, it's tremendous of really.
Amazing. Yeah. So
So
so the website is danielshell.org.
there are three websites:
Mm-hmm.
danielshell.net for Daniel Schell composer, tapguitar.net for tap guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
clickmusic.net for all the groups and performance of costs and so on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But about my ideas, etc. There's not much about Carreaux. I have a new paper on the Carreaux, but I wanted to be in the mathematics and music, but they snubbed me. So what can I do?
So you're gonna put it out yourself, or just to make
Or
it
maybe,
available, or?
yeah, or maybe I should contact maybe some other guys. Like there is
Mm-hmm.
this thing, new music online. Actually, Richard Cohn was interested in publishing it in the Journal of Music Theory,
Mm-hmm.
but then it went to. Okay, I think the most important is that I use it.
Yes. Yeah. But make
Yeah,
sure make sure it's available to people. I
yeah,
think it's
sure,
important.
yeah. I have some students who are very much interested in this concept,
Mm-hmm.
like you,
Mm-hmm.
so using it. So I'm ready to distribute the software, the Carreaux software, and
Mm-hmm.
because it's just open to research. I mean, in the way you use it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of addressing like this really foundational problem of the traveling salesman kind of.
Yes, the first article was that I found that the I could join the Carreaux like the traveling salesman by this traveling salesman algorithm. Then I went to this famous Concorde algorithm. You have an algorithm which is done. It has almost solved. It's like the problem of the traveling salesman, which is not solved yet. But in fact, everybody says that this algorithm is, in fact, is the best. It's not
Mhm.
proof, but it is the best. And so I did it, but in Z24,
Ah,
because in Z12 you have not many possibilities, and you can do by hand very easily, like I did. But in Z24 you have much more possibilities. So instead of joining optimally 4 triads, I joined optimally 8 triads.
mhm.
And there you have much more. And
But
so I
when
start.
when you say that 24, it means it does not mean 24 individual pitches. It means still
It's
12 pitches,
24,
but times two.
24 individual pitches, huh?
Okay.
Like, yeah, like C and C sharp, and in between C sharp, C.
Yeah, okay. But because
Yeah,
you could also map it to more than one octave, and work that way.
but that sounds totally bizarre. That sounds like a composition by a
By me,
Bulgarian
by me.
composer. Because it sounds like diatonic music.
Hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't produce at all the effect. It's the first thing I did.
Hmm.
But on Z24, it sounds very bizarre as well. But it's more things. And actually, I did it because it's very difficult to find Carreaux on Z24. By
Hmm.
hand, it's almost impossible.
Hmm.
So actually, I took Rémi and I did Rémi 24. Like, because Rémi, I knew the solution of Rémi. So,
Hmm.
so I did Rémi 24 and that was working. And so
Hmm.
that you can play.
Hmm.
But we didn't actually produce. We know we could do, but we didn't produce a list because with 24 it's growing exponentially.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Daniel. I mean, I hope that some people will check your
Understand?
music out and understand. No, but we'll listen to your music. But because I think like those earlier experiments with the group Carreaux, they sound they're really
Yeah,
charming and magical.
it was really great experience.
Mhm.
But it was maybe one of those last bands, independent bands, because the musicians of Carreaux now they are with Ictus.
Mhm.
You want to say hello to Laura?
Yeah, let's just finish and then I
Oh,
can
yeah, we
talk
will
with her.
finish.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
we
Yeah,
mixed private.
Daniel.
Look, Carreaux was a great experience, yes, but it was difficult we were touring, but we were in a way too much contemporary for existing without subsidies. We were
Hmm.
asking to organizers, and it was not also like 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 you, King Crimson, or things, a very very well known progressive rock band that can.
Hmm.
Uh, and so, as I say, Dirk de Scheemaker and Jean-Luc Plouvier, they went to Ictus.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And me, I continued to compose operas, and I was in opera houses. So, but
Hmm.
but the group has it's very difficult. Now I have a Carreaux trio, so that's possible. But
Hmm. Yeah. I remember actually even seeing one of the Carreaux concerts in Wuppertal, maybe it was Wuppertal or somewhere in the Ruhrgebiet, um, which was great because you did the one piece at the end with the percussion piece with the
yeah,
stones
the
or
bush, yes.
it was.
Again, it was very interesting concept of the Carreaux because we were doing one 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 one, and then we were doing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 and we knew the chords because we were playing the chords musically all the time. So they knew that because they were playing Tapis la Nuit and they were playing, and we had improvised music. We had to play 1-2-2-1, 1-2-2-1, but they knew the formulas. So in a sense, it was an interesting concept because from knowing the formulas, they could play it also. And like
Yes.
we had nights, like we did with Terry Riley, you know, 12 hours, 12 hours of playing continuously.
Mhm.
And we had a little computer generating Carreaux,
Mhm.
and we were playing Carreaux like
Mhm.
1-2-2-1, 1-2-2-1, 1-2-2-1, and then we had a sign, poof, 2-3-3-2, and it
Mhm.
was an interesting concept.
Mhm. Mhm. Wonderful. Yeah. Okay, Daniel. I mean, let's stop here. This is enough. My mouth is dry,
Okay.
and yeah, let's talk again soon.
Yeah, if you want a Sunday 5 o'clock, I do this position.
Yeah, I
Define the
can.
position.
Yeah, I
Please
can be.
come.
I can be there. Yeah, send me the link, and
Okay.
I'll be there. Yes.
I send you the link and the IDs, and we discuss the concept of position.
Okay. We will.
I like to discuss the fundamental concept because I think people have to know fundamental things, you know.
I agree.
Otherwise, they play. In fact, they move, they change of position, but they don't know that they
Yeah.
change of position. So it's good that they know.
Yes.
See you, Marcus.
See
Okay,
you.
we stop
Bye
now.
bye.
Want to
Yeah.
want to say hello? Willst du
Yes.
einmal Laura sehen? Ich
Yeah.
ruf mal Laura.
Yeah.